Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Fridays on Facebook. This is Tiara International. We are a women's leadership development global team. And today we have myself, Betsy Sobiek, and Elizabeth Rusky.
Hello.
And Peg Rowe.
Hi there.
And on the phone, we have Andrea Henning calling in from the Netherlands.
Hello, I'm here.
Hi, awesome. Thank you all for being here. So every Friday we gather together and we talk about a leadership subject that has come up either for our clients, for ourselves. And today we are talking about trust. We actually are launching a dialogue about trust next week. We have our virtual roundtable where we host panelists who are in leadership roles across the world, really. And we're going to talk about trust with them, like what it takes to build trust or even rebuild trust, etc. So in the links below, we'll have a place where you can check that out and RSVP. It's something complimentary, and it's a really great opportunity to just hear a dialogue between people who face this issue every day. So we're kicking off our trust dialogue first with this. Then we have our roundtable next week. And then in November, we actually have a 3-session series on trust and leadership, because one of the things we really believe in here at Tiara is applied learning. Like, it's not just the concept, it's in what do you do with that makes a difference every day. So we often have one of those teleseries on the end. So Peg, I know that you, first of all, are moderating the panel on trust next week. So you've been knee deep in preparing for that. And I also know this was a subject that you feel like a lot of your clients face. It was one that you really were thinking that it would be helpful for us to address as Tiara. So what are some of your thoughts that make you feel like it's really the topic to be on the table?
Yeah, it feels like there's almost like a sense in the ether, if you will, that trust and civility are these topics that sort of keep circling back around, and that it's coming up in lots of different ways. And I know that in the clients that I work with, they're interested in understanding what they as a leader need to do to continue to foster trust within their teams, within the relationships they have in their organizations, and then in a broader context, particularly as they're examining how to increase their influence in an organization. They often come back to recognizing that trust is kind of this foundational piece. And so we know in all the work that we do with teams that like one of the reference books that we use a lot with teams is the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And the first plank of that whole model is trust, and suggesting that absent trust, not much else can actually happen effectively within a team. So it just felt like it was a topic that was worth exploring in more than just the kind of acknowledgement like, oh yeah, trust is a good thing, but actually to get a little deeper in what does it actually really mean? How do you build trust? What erodes trust? Is trust as simple, you have it or you don't, or are there sorts of shades of gray inside of that? So part of my interest was in how do we explore that topic in a bit more depth so that we all have a deeper understanding for ourselves of who we are in relationship to trust, how we embed trust in our relationships, and then how we foster that in a kind of a broader way in the other relationships and organizations that we're in. So that was really what piqued my interest about bringing this topic forward.
Mm-hmm. And I think as we've started to prepare for the dialogue, each of us has had an insight or a reframing about trust that we didn't have before we started talking about it. Andrea,
absolutely.
Is there something that either of the two of you have already seen about trust that was a little bit of an aha for either of you? Or something that you feel like is important to bring to your clients or the leadership discussion about trust?
I think for me, it always comes back to can I trust myself? So of course we work a lot with Lencioni, and we work a lot with the theme of trust in teams. But the ahas normally come from my own, like, can I really trust myself, be true to myself? So this is the ongoing conversation. And I think also in this dialogue, we will get back to that later.
Yeah, and in fact, when Peg and I were talking about the design of the teleseries, we did think about starting with trust yourself kind of as the central piece, and then building trusting relationships with others, and then actually leading from a place of trust and building trust, so that the 3-week series follows along that path as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I know go ahead, Beth.
And not just trust yourself, I think there's another element to that, Betsy. It's about checking yourself too. Are you acting trusting? So this whole point about the first dimension, if you will, of trust is internal for yourself, but it's not just, are you experiencing trust? Are you acting in the way that you want people to be acting towards you? I think is also important in that dimension.
Yeah, and it brings up a little bit of the question of the difference between trust and being trustworthy, which has been an interesting one as we've kind of explored that, and people are beginning to see that it's not just my experience of others, but how am I actually operating in a way that conveys that I'm worthy of someone else's trust.
Peg, I think that's really important, because when we refer to trust and we're talking about trust, as Betsy alluded to, we're talking about it in terms of the relationship. Mm-hmm. So trust is a relationship with yourself, with others. And when you are in a relationship, it's not one-dimensional. It is giving and receiving of the trust.
Yeah, yes. I also think that to go down the path of not one-dimensional, the couple insights that I've had, one is that I feel like in the past I've collapsed trust with either being good or not. Like if you're trustworthy or trusting someone else, then you're a good person in some way. Mm-hmm. Where really, as we've explored this, I also feel like being skeptical and trusting your instinct, again, trusting yourself or your instinct, when there is something that maybe you shouldn't trust as part of being a leader too, that it's not just blindly trusting everybody in every situation. That's not necessarily always better or the goal. So there's that component, like it gets collapsed with like what you should do to be a good person. You should be trustworthy, you should trust other people. And is that really always the case? And then the other is that I also think it's multidimensional between people. Like there are people that I trust with very deep important things, but I might not trust like to hang a picture straight on my wall, or to, make a really good cake, or to show up on time, when we go out to dinner or something. But that doesn't mean I don't trust them as like a human or with something important. So I also feel like there's a little bit of these dimensions of what you trust people for, and it might be useful to not make it so heavy all the time. Like, what do I trust you for? What do I count on you for? What do you trust me for? Are those the things that I want to be trusted for? And is that working or not working, as opposed to this like very significant, either you're trustworthy or you're a bad person, either I trust you or I'm, a bad person kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think, go ahead, Andrea.
And it's also, I think when it comes to the personal piece, it's very important to know what you need. For instance, I just come back from 2 weeks of travel, and because I don't have any sense of direction, I am a little nervous about being in time, being at the right gate, being at the right place. So if just people say like, "Oh, just trust me," it is easier on that part, because I feel kind of insecure there, and it's also part of owning my own insecurity, and then maybe make a request so that other people know and make it easier for me, so that I can trust that everything's all right. So there's this whole piece of what do I need to feel the trust, and that's very different also in a work relationship. What is it that I need from you so that I can trust you?
Yeah, and I think as I've been processing it, what's come up for me is I've always related to trust on sort of this level of continuum. And I know we actually are uniquely wired up, and we are either the kind of people who normally, naturally trust until you do something to violate or break my trust, or we're the kind of person for whom we say, you need to earn my trust. And neither is right or wrong or good or bad. And I think when we've been in these discussions, that whole multidimensional piece, Betsy, that you referenced, the way it's coming up for me is like on that continuum, it's not like you're either here or here. There's a bunch of shades of gray in between. And even shades of gray, to your point, around I might have absolute trust in somebody on these things and then not so much on that. And it doesn't mean that I discount the way that I do trust them, but I'm just going to have to be cognizant of and intentional about when and where and how I put my trust with that person.
Well, it's what Andrea just said too, is that there are also times where I may or may not trust myself. Like I trust myself.
Right. Yeah.
but I don't trust myself in these areas. So how do I
Yep.
build a support system and not take that seriously either? Like I have to.
Exactly.
You know, it's funny. I have a situation where my son and future daughter-in-law are getting married out of state. And so we're going to be hosting a rehearsal dinner and a welcoming reception for all the out-of-town guests. And everyone's given me advice. I'm asking for advice. It's not like it's unsolicited. I'm asking for advice because I don't trust myself really as throwing, you know, the party, being the party planner per se.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can do planning at a big level, but the minutia details is not my strength whatsoever. And so as people are offering opinions, I can hear that inside of, does this actually fit into my strengths or not? And some of, I know, like even with some of my sisters, they've gotten a little annoyed, like, no, you could do this, you could do this. And I'm like, I probably could do it, but I'm choosing not to. I'm really centered and trusting my instincts about how I want to be in those 48 hours that are most important to us, you know? And I really do think you know, trusting our instincts is, well, I'll say for me, I won't say for everyone. I think it's probably one of the most key ingredients to things working in my life is if I'm in tune with and trusting my own instincts.
Well, and the other thing that I would say, Beth, in addition to that, as you were talking, is that we often within Tiara say, trust perfect timing. So that we're not feeling like, well, we have to have a plan and A plus B plus C equals D. And boy, if it doesn't happen exactly that way with exactly that timing, something must be wrong.
Yeah.
And it's so much part of our culture now that even if we don't know when something's going to happen or how it's going to happen, we often say with full belief, we're going to trust perfect timing. We actually don't have to know. We're just going to trust perfect timing. And that to me is kind of a fascinating way that we're giving trust really completely outside of ourselves, to things just going the way they're supposed to go.
That is interesting.
Can I point out one other thing, Peg? You know, when you're saying that, it's, you know, the thing that might trigger for some people, for some leaders in particular, whatever role you're leading, it could be leading an event, it could be leading on a committee, it could be leading at work, leading a team, it doesn't matter. But if you find that you, like, for example, that scenario I just explained, if I gave into that, I actually might come across as super controlling because I'm going to get worried about all the details that I'm not really, really great at. And so I'm going to second guess almost everything. And those around me may have an experience of me that I'm controlling when I'm not about a lot of things, you know? And that's the thing, especially as women leaders, we have to watch as to how, when we're in tune with our own, you know, trusting ourselves, in tune with us, not in tune, what is the impact that that's having on others too? Because I think that's a key part of learning how to trust yourself and trust others around you.
When it does really point to that whole awareness dimension, that's really inside of that. It's like trusting ourselves is actually about knowing ourselves really well and being clear. Even if somebody else says you can do that, and you know, yeah, at some level I can, but actually that's not the best place for me to apply my strengths. There are people around me who are going to be much better at that. Going to be a better outcome, and I'm going to trust that my instinct that somebody else can do that better than I can is probably spot on.
Yeah. And Betsy, you have started with a question about ahas. One of the ahas of last year was when we were all certified in political intelligence, where it's explicitly talking about the impact we have on others. We might think that we are completely in integrity, completely pure of intention, and we can land totally differently. So having this multidimensional thing where it's in the relationship, and as a leader, above all, also be very aware that people look at you. They hear you say something. They might even trust that you mean it, but then they will totally monitor how you act. And does that then make them conclude that you are trustworthy or not, has also a lot to do what they need the other to trust and their opinion. So transparency and being aware of that, even if you think that you can be trusted because you are a quote unquote good person or a thoughtful person, like this transparency and this checking it inside of the relationship is also a very important piece of trust.
I think so.
That is new for me.
You know, we help women a lot in their leadership development path to shift from managing to really leading. And I think part of that is figuring out how to let go of control a little bit, whether it's develop trusting relationships with others that are clear and have that good give and take so you build trust over time, or trusting ourselves and our instincts. So Beth, you said the thing about control, and I think for a lot of us, there does have to be a release of control as you're developing trusting. The other thing I'm really aware of is, as a consultant, a coach, and showing up as a leader in different scenarios, when I was younger, I used to be offended when people didn't trust me because I'm obviously so trustworthy, like inside of me and like who I am and what I do. But now, like, of course they don't trust me. Like if I just show up new to a client, or I'm new on a phone call, or someone's considering me for a coach, or I want to lead in a community environment, and the first time I come to the meeting, like, why would they trust me? They don't know me, why I'm there, my past record, whatever. Now, to your point, Peg, someone might automatically trust me because that's how they are with people. Like, you're here, we trust you, and you may live into it or not. Or someone may automatically be skeptical because that's how they navigate the world. But I don't have to be offended in a leadership role when someone doesn't trust me yet, given, what Andrea is saying. And this kind of goes to the dialogue of like, how do we build trust? Things are easier once you do have the trust of people around you, like as far as the speed of trust and that Covey, I think it's the Covey book.
Covey, it is.
Yeah.
So, it is, things do flow when the trust is present. So then how do you build trust over time? Keep showing up, do what you said you would do, or communicate differently, own up if you make a mistake, all of those different things, I think, end up building trust over time. And there's nothing you can do but take time to build trust.
Well, and here's the thing that I've seen come up numerous times thematically with clients who get promoted, and they may get promoted inside a company they've been working in. And one of the surprises is that they have to regain trust. And that they come from a place of like, but people already trust me, but they don't trust you in the new role you're in. And that has sometimes taken longer than they might anticipate, because people are doing, Andrea, exactly what you said. They're testing, they're seeing, are you going to do what you say you're going to do? You're in a new role. Can I trust that the things you say you're going to do, you're going to follow through on? And I've had numerous leaders who have been surprised that it took as long as it did for them to feel like they had finally sort of regained the trust of all of those around them in the new role that they're in. So even beyond just coming to a new company where you might expect that, yes, people don't know you, and so, they don't really know what to expect. Even inside a place where, yes, people do know you, they have a sense of who you are, they know what you're accountable for, but now you've changed roles, and that changes the dynamic.
Peg, it's funny. There was a time in my career where we created a joint venture, and the two investment companies each put in several $1 million to launch the joint venture. And we signed all the papers on a Friday, and the way the sequence was occurring, that the new bank signatures wouldn't kick in until Monday. So that weekend, mine was the sole signature on an account that they had invested several $1 million in each. And, I was kind of joking with one of the board members and said, oh, my husband and I have a nice trip to the Bahamas planned, and I was being me and being, kind of goofy and, just casual and humorous about it. And he looked at me, and he was a friend, and he said, listen, you can't say that to anyone. They actually have a private investigator following you. And I said, are you kidding me? And to your point, Betsy, I got really offended. Like, my goodness, we've spent all this time together. Do you not know who I am? Like, I would not feel. And I also get that they really didn't know me. And, if I had several $1 million invested with a stranger per se, I might put a private investigator on them too.
Yeah. And we know people in a certain context, and then you put something like a lot of money at stake, and people's behavior does change. and where a different person can show up, and we don't know that. We want to trust that that same person that we've been dealing with is exactly who's going to be minding the store, and you never know. So yeah.
Well, the
The one
other,
thing, the one thing that I know for me erodes trust, and we haven't really touched on that too much, but this is both the positive and the negative. If you have clear agreements, I think it builds trust. And I think when you have agreements that aren't met by one or multiple people, and it happens, whether it's a pattern or it happens once, it starts to actually erode and chip away at the trust because your agreements aren't solid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
yeah, and I was going to say also that I think one of the characteristics of trust, which is a little unfortunate, but we've probably all experienced, is that it's much quicker to lose trust than gain trust in a lot of scenarios, depending on, again, where you are in the trust continuum. But we've all probably been in situations where either someone did something and disappointed us, and we're like, well, then I'm not going to trust that person for a while at least, and it goes really fast. And then it's harder to regain or rebuild trust over time. On the flip side, as leaders and people who are juggling lots of different things and doing our best, whether it's communities, work, or whatever, we may make mistakes. So I think this whole dimension of like how you build trust, how you keep trust, if it erodes, if you lose trust, how do you recover, is also really interesting, because sometimes people are working hard and doing their best and something still happens that then has people not trust the leadership or not trust the company or not trust whatever. And you can't really explain and defend yourself too much. You just have to like pick up the pieces and then go in the direction you said you're going to go consistently as you're rebuilding that trust over time.
It can almost, I think, it's almost a given that if it's a breach of trust, that it's going to take exponentially longer to rebuild it than it did to break it. And we have to know that and count on it. It's not just going to be good enough if it's significant. Now, if it's a small thing like being late for a meeting, that's a whole different deal. But, if it's something more significant, then it will take continuous integrity and showing up and doing what you say you're going to do for people to finally feel like, yes, that's sustainable. Yes, that I can now I can believe and retrust that, you're going to do what you said you were going to do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I also, with all my work with teams and with organizations, I also find that the trust card is drawn quite easily. Like, oh yeah, we don't trust the leadership, or we don't trust the management, or we don't trust, as if that is some kind of thing out there. And whenever we then get a chance to see what it's all about, like the whole triangle of Lencioni is very helpful. It is about the clear agreement. Sometimes it is about the goals are not clear, or you are in a matrix organization where there are multi-stakeholders and all the different parties that work together have different goals or different needs. So having the conversation about it, and then also going back to, okay, what I want to see in others, how well am I doing it, or what are my excuses to maybe not be transparent or not address that, and these are very valuable conversations to build trust, but we need a podium to talk about it.
Right.
I think what you're bringing up, Andrea, is a really interesting idea, because it could be, to your point, like people bring the trust card forward, and it may be that they actually mean something else, but trust becomes sort of this covers everything.
Yeah.
And I think having a dialogue that digs deeper into, when you say you don't trust, what is it you don't trust? What are the behaviors you don't trust? What does that actually look like? Really is significant, because you can't reverse it if you don't know that information. And you might be able to actually point towards, it's really not trust you're talking about something else. And I think getting clear about that becomes a really important exercise. So thanks for raising that one. I think that's a good one.
I think it is. And I think it's very painful when someone or a group of people have just decided not to trust anybody, no matter what they do. Like if in an organization, someone has pulled that trust card, like you said, and they just decided, well, we're not trusting that leader, or we're not trusting this person who's taken over. It's really hard to be in that position and be successful and feel like you can really be your true self. And yes, doing some of the exercises that we talked about may rebuild that relationship over time. yeah, sometimes it's impact. If trust, I do think there are situations when trust is not present, then it's impassable. Like the relationship can't move forward, success can't happen, and sometimes people just dig their heels in, and usually to protect themselves or because they're afraid of something or for possibly good reason. But I've been in some of those situations. There's nothing more painful than when someone has just decided not to trust me, no matter what I have done or I'm going to do or will do again. It's really, really mind, crazy making.
It's tough. Very tough.
It's tough. It's very tough. Yeah. And back to the point of disappointment that I think you, Peg, addressed before. Like a lot of times we are disappointed, but we never voice it to the other person. So the other person has no clue. And at the same time, we kind of build in all kinds of things to not be disappointed anymore. And this is really not helpful. I think sometimes we need to be courageous to open that conversation about us being disappointed, not that someone hasn't met our needs, and then also listen to the other person, like where is he or she coming from, and maybe has had no clue that, and then also we can see, oh, next time I can be more clear. So you can have agreement also how you want to, what you need inside of the relationship to live up to each other's expectations.
The one thing you guys are all talking about that I think is crystal clear is that you need to have clear communication in establishing trust.
Yeah.
And whether that's in the form of an agreement, what I do, what you do, what I count on you for, what I don't count on you for, what to do when it's eroded, how do we clean things up, whatever it is. And communication can be also a broad brush. So we have to be careful, to your point, Peg, about what specifically is right or wrong in the communication that we have with each other. But I think if we focus on the communication, making sure someone feels heard, making sure they're understood, making sure we're understood, and that we have a clear agreement, I think the likelihood of things clicking are a heck of a lot better.
Yeah, I was on a conversation yesterday with a client who was having a different experience than she expected in a relationship. And what was interesting is that she had not actually voiced that to the other person. And it was somebody I know whose behavior seemed to give the impression that he was not as present or fully invested. And I was actually surprised because it was not actually the way that I know this person. And my guess is that there was something that was distracting him. And the thing that I'm clear about is that for her to be courageous and just have the conversation and say, hey, here's my expectation. I know him as an individual. He probably isn't aware that he's showing up as distracted. Right. He probably thinks he's bringing himself fully, just as he always does, and doesn't actually know that. And if it's handled with a certain amount of graciousness, I'm clear that that individual could absolutely hear it and would do whatever he could do to make it right. Because that's how invested he is in trying to make that relationship a valuable relationship from a work perspective. So I think, to your point, Andrea, about sometimes we experience disappointment and then we don't say anything. So we continue to make up a story about what's happening or not happening, and we don't allow the other person to even have the insight that what we're hoping for, what we're expecting isn't occurring, so that we can work together to have that be the reality that we're trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
So communication is absolutely key to all of this, and being able to communicate clearly and in a way that is, direct, but also gracious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's always a magic moment when you can get past the anxiety and the vulnerability and really have that conversation that clears the air. So I know we're reaching the end of our time. Thank you all of you for working with. I have one last question for us to throw out there. Because we've all worked together in different ways for 15 or more years now, basically. So why do we trust each other? Like, obviously we couldn't keep working the way we worked together if there wasn't some kind of trust. So we just had to speak for ourselves. Why do we trust each other? What's happened in our history that has caused this to be such a deep, trusting partnership?
I would, let me start and say, I think for me, it's that, the people on this team and in our organization understand clearly what
Is it
Being
just
their word is.
garbled for, or is it other people?
I'm hearing it's garbled as well.
Okay, so one reason we build trust is we don't let me speak up. But you started to talk and it totally went like robotic.
So obviously I had something important to say. No, I think the thing is that for us, for our partnership, for everyone in our organization, there's the trust is really based on a phrase I think we use, and that is, being your word. And what that means is doing what you say you will do when you say you'll do it, and if not, cleaning it up. And we can count on each other when someone says, I got it, that they got it. We don't have to keep checking. Because if they don't got it, they're going to come back and say, I don't got it anymore. And that's okay, because we recognize everything's fluid, and yet we really know and honor each other as the experts and wonderful, talented people that are sitting next to us.
I think the other thing that I would say, Beth, because all of that is absolutely true, is that for me, being part of this team, the trust piece is a growing piece because I came from organizations where it didn't operate in the way that it operates for all of us. And so now it's just a given. In fact, I appreciate when I go into other organizations that they don't operate the way that we do. And I have to remind myself of that, because we have a particular way that we operate that we all can absolutely trust and lean into. And I know for me, it took a little while to actually sort of trust and believe that those were more than just words, that that's actually how we operated together. And so I would say my trust over the time that we've all worked together deepens, all of the time as I experience each of you individually and all of us collectively, and know that we are all well-intended. We all are working towards the same goals. We all have the same shared vision, and we are all doing our best. And even in spite of doing our best, sometimes things don't work the way we want, and then we're open and we clean it up and we take care of it. So, all of that is just the way that we operate, but it's not the way that everyone else operates. And so I recognize immediately how rare it is that the way we operate together is not necessarily the way the world operates.
Yeah.
You sound like you're bragging.
I cherish it, by the way.
Yes, yeah. Thanks for having the opportunity to call that out, and then in public on Facebook. I can really say that over the years, you guys have so much earned my trust, because we are all coming from a larger vision. We often say that it's us as person, but it's also Tiara, not so much even as an organization, but as a movement, as what it stands for. And time after time, we have been able to get to a place that is kind of beyond ego. We didn't walk away from tough situations, tough conversations, because somehow we knew that we are also doing it for the collective, for the greater good. And so not walking away from when it really, really was tough sometimes, also had to do, in my opinion, with that I can call on all of us, like look into ourselves, so when push comes to shove, it's not like, oh, this is your fault. And this is often how the world operates. They can hold up to a certain degree, and then it's like, okay, but now it's not my fault. Now I have to let go of you. And we never did that. We have been moving through these moments in time.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I mean, I do feel like for me, the trust is there because I know everybody on our team cares as much, if not more than I do, and moment to moment about what we're doing. The shared vision, and Peg, the one that you said was one that I was also had very strongly, was that because I do trust everyone's intentions 110%, that everyone's well intended. And then the other is that we have each other's backs. Like that's also been a thing that I've experienced, whether we're co-leading something together, whether we're designing something together, whether we just are having a rough period of time, the fact that we can be open about all of it and then help shore each other up. But then we also allow each other to shine as well when it's that person's time in the spotlight. So I think all of those components over the 15 or more years that we've worked together just do make that trust really there. You know, like Beth said, we'll clean it up if there's a problem. Like Andrea said, we'll look each other in the eye and sort things out, and we're up to something bigger. So it is something that I'm really thankful for, and it is something that we've been intentional about building, whether or not we've called it that or not. It's been a very intentional culture for us to build, and it's one that we love to share with our clients, whether it's individual or on teams. It's like, how do you really create that field of trust so you can operate in that way that feels so good? So thank you all for that. And thank you all for those of you who are listening, either live or the recording. If you like this kind of leadership conversation, we're on Facebook on Fridays live. So like our Facebook page. And then we always post these videos on our YouTube channel as well. So you can see those the following week. If you're commenting yourself, that's great. We love additional resources, additional thoughts. So feel free to comment either place, and we will reply to you. And we will see you next Friday. And before that, we hope to see you on our, or at least see that you're watching our roundtable, which will be next week, and the link will be below to that. All right, thanks you guys.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.